Hey, this is Stephen Amell, and you are listening to Tomorrow's Legends, the podcast. Don't fail your city.
During a trip through time, the Legends were forced to land the Waverider in Blue Valley, Nebraska, where they discovered a young superhero.
Yes.
About to take flight.
That's cool.
Who are you?
I'm Stargirl.
Wow, does everybody remember that theme song? It is good to be back in the Midwest, Blue Valley to be exact, and it's bright and sunny here while we get ready to ramp up Season 3 of Stargirl and Starman. Or wait a second, they didn't change the title, it's still Stargirl, right?
Yep.
And kicking it off with Episode 1 is Frenemies, Chapter 1, The Murder. Written by Stargirl creator himself, Jeff Johns. I am the skipping down the street, waving at everybody, hello, the Flash.
And I'm rewatching Clue and Knives Out to be ready for this season. I'm X-Force 11.
Ah, yes.
Hello, Legends.
And Gideon is still here.
Yay!
She didn't disappear with the Legends. I guess they didn't handcuff and put the AI version of her in jail. Just the human version. Yeah.
We've got our own copy, so alternate timeline, other Earth.
Yeah. Cloned, uploaded, whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we have not been around for a while, guys. The last time you heard from us was our Legends farewell episode, so we got a little bit of news to catch up. We're going to tell you a little bit about what's coming in Stargirl this season and maybe a couple other things to discuss. Here comes some news.
We interrupt this podcast for a special report.
And I guess the first thing we should say, X-Force, is that people are probably wondering, where's Harley? Why haven't I heard her say hi? It's because she is at Dragon Con all weekend, one of the biggest expos or Comic-Cons there is down there in Atlanta, Georgia. And yeah, she's having a lot of fun. She's hosting a couple panels and she's visiting some friends and whatever. So we will catch up with all she got to witness when she gets back next week.
Indeed. All right, so this season of Stargirl is 13 episodes. It's a themed murder mystery. And if we don't take any breaks, this season will finish up on November 23rd, which means we'll probably have to push our recording of the season finale back a bit, since that's the day before Thanksgiving here in the U.S.
Yeah. And no, I mean, you say, well, if there isn't any breaks, that's a big if, because you know how these CW networks TV shows go. There's always a break somewhere.
Yeah, we'll see. But somewhere in the season, we're going to have episodes titled Infinity Inc. Part 1 and Part 2. So if you remember me last season sharing, Infinity Inc. was a spin-off group from the JSA, having some of the younger members of the JSA in it. So this may be interesting. I don't know if that means that we're going to kind of see a team split, if we're going to see some of our younger members be on Infinity Inc., or maybe some of our older members be on Infinity Inc., but I think that's an interesting concept of maybe having more than one hero group in this universe. So
yeah, well, if it is younger members, maybe that's where Mike and Jakeem will end up going.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
So, as I said, this season is dealing with a murder mystery, friends and enemies living side by side, which we saw some of that in tonight's episode. And don't forget, we're going to be dealing with the sibling story of Jade and Todd Rice in this story. So we kind of teased at the end of last season. So our Green Lantern and Todd Rice, who is Obsidian. So we'll be getting to that sometime in this season.
And that's confirmed, because we were wondering about that, if they're going to come back to that this season or not.
Yes, they've confirmed it, because they've got David Prowse as playing Bones, and he voiced it last season, and so he's going to voice it again this season. So we'll at least have some of that Director Bones in there, or Mr. Bones in there. So
cool. All right.
And this has been out there for a little bit, but I wanted to cover it here because this is the first time we've got to talk about it. So Superman and Lois actor Jordan Elsas will not be returning to the show. So he's taking time off to work on his mental health. So this is hard because the show has said that they're going to recast Jonathan Kent. So, recasting is always hard, but we're here to support the actor and getting the support and the help he needs and to do what's best for him. So we've kind of speculated in the Facebook group about how they're going to recast, of how they're going to switch up the face to the Jonathan Kent. So we don't know exactly how that's going to be, but it's going to be there. And I didn't get this in the show notes. A little more Superman and Lois stuff. Lois ends up having a interesting storyline this season, from what Bitsy is saying. So we don't get much more than that. So I'm looking forward to see what they do. I'm just kind of up in the air on how the recast will work.
Well, it's unfortunate because part of the discussion we were having on our Facebook page about it is that I was really hard pressed to remember any TV shows that had to recast an actor and it actually was successful. It hasn't happened very often.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough because we've gotten 2 full seasons with this actor as Jonathan Kent, so we are used to him. And when you ask somebody else to step in and play that part, the reason why it's never worked is because nobody really wants to take to the new actor. It's better. My feeling is that it's better to write the character off as a way to get rid of them than to try to recast them. I mean, you look at them recasting Captain Kirk on Star Trek or somebody like it's just tough. You can't do it, and I don't know. It's a shame that he had to do this so suddenly, but like you said, it's for his own his own health, and we support that. It just sucks for the show and sucks for the viewers because it's going to be hard for whoever the new actor is that's coming in. Unless he's a dead ringer for him, it's going to be really, really hard to accept the change and get used to it. And maybe 3 or 4 seasons later, it'll be all fine. But right off the bat for this season, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, and I have confidence in the writers and the production team that they'll provide some type of maybe explanation, unless like you said, unless it's like he's the so much of a resemblance that you're not going to push it off. But I have faith in the crew, and I think they'll do a good job at making that transition.
Do you think they're going to write something in part of the story to explain it? Like, he had a bad car accident and he's got, had to get face reconstructed. Like, do you think they'd actually do something like that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, some of the speculation in the group was like they talked about, going into the new fortress and maybe something happens there. Like there's an experiment to try to give him powers and that ends up changing his appearance or something like that. But the issue is like, how do you then explain that to the people of Smallville who are used to seeing a different, Jonathan Kent? So I don't know how well that would work. So I don't know. Yeah,
well, I guess we'll have to wait and see what they do with it. I hope the best for it. I mean, what if Jordan Elsas feels fine halfway through the season? He's like, you know what, I got my stuff figured out. Well, it's too late now. He can't come back.
Yeah.
Like it's, he's letting go of a big opportunity for himself because they were just starting to change the story up for him. And
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh well, yeah. Best of luck to him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's some fun news, and this is funny. Me and Harley have been waiting for this to come through in a long, long time, and I think we had one for our Legends show way back when, but we actually got our first bad rating. And we always joke about, a lot of podcasters talk about this, that you've never really truly made it, you're never successful until you get your first 1-star rating out there. Because if you think about it, you might think, oh my god, 1-star review, that's awful, but it's not, because somebody had to still take the time to go to iTunes or wherever it is, log in, write their bad review and then leave. So it's obviously means enough to them to do that. And it's so funny. So that is a general podcasting kind of consensus out there, is that you've never truly made it until you get your first 1-star rating. So we got ours. And it was a little while ago. It was back in November. It just popped up, though. I do have an account that kind of sends me any new reviews that come in. And this one came in during all of our off season, and we never got to talk about it because it was about Stargirl. And it says, and I don't know if this person's listening. They go by the name of Forbes, or for best 5099, and whoever it is lives in Great Britain. So based on the 1-star review, I doubt they're listening, so it doesn't really matter. We're going to mock you anyway now that you're reviewing us. But they said, bad show, 1 star. The review of the Stargirl finale was pure garbage, and the hosts are completely bland. Bizarre reaction to what most are calling one of the best CW superhero finales. The smugness is extremely off-putting. So I don't know if we've ever been smug. I don't know, but I had a good chuckle at that. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. It's everyone's allowed to feel what they feel, but obviously this person has not listened to our entire catalog of Tomorrow's Legends, because they would have heard many ups and downs and crazy stuff over the years.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
apparently we're bland, and according to this person, the Stargirl finale was one of the best ever on the CW, and I find that really hard to believe. I don't think anybody is saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. There's good ones out there, but it. Like, I liked last season finale a bit better than you did.
Yeah,
but,
I was upset.
But we'll move on.
Exactly. I mean, I was the one that was really down on it. You were the bright light and trying to pump it up. So, obviously they focused on what I had to say.
And this season we will have Harley with us, so
Yeah. But fun. That's fun. We are now successful. We've made it, X-Force. Got our first 1 star. All right, let's get into the show. We're going to talk about Season 3, Episode 1 of Stargirl. Let's do it.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
And we're going to talk about our ratings.
Yes, so I gave this one 8 Colonel Mustards on the patio with the revolver.
Right out of Clue.
Had to go with the Clue one there, but so I liked how we continued the story from the crossover comic this summer, featuring Stargirl, right into this episode. The Dugan-Whitmore clan did some superhero saving over the summer, as seen as in the comic, but we also see in this episode some of the headlines in the papers in the kitchen from different places that Starman has kind of collected. And so they've just finished up this summer vacation. They're back in Blue Valley. And I think I'm really going to love the murder mystery aspect of this season, because I love that in shows and movies.
Yeah.
The Frenemies section, I don't know. I mean, it seemed like a little bit much in this first episode. Maybe they were being a little bit heavy with it to kind of set the tone of where things are going to be, and then they're going to lighten it up and play it a little bit lighter. But, like I said, I like the mystery aspect. The Frenemies, not so much. But on a side note, this Blue Lantern spent a lot of this week fighting off the Red Lanterns of Rage. So this episode was a fun step into the lightheartedness of Golden Age DC, and I really needed it. So I was really glad Stargirl was back, and it just gave me a smile watching it.
Indeed. Well, I'm right there with you. I'm giving it also an 8, back to the what happened to the school during the summer. Because it's suddenly fully repaired and nobody knows the wiser. Like, it got destroyed in the fight. So that's a question I'm going to leave up in the air, and I wonder if it'll ever come up. But anyway.
Yeah.
We just did our preseason speculation for our Patreon supporters for this season of Stargirl, and we were wondering about all the quotes by the actors that saying, what's going to be different about this season, because there was an interview on Entertainment Tonight, and a lot of the actors were quoted with a few different things, and they were saying it's going to be a different season. It's going to feel new. We're going to try for something really cool that you haven't seen before. And I actually really felt that in this premiere. Last season, they tried to go dark and be spooky, but for a generally younger and more family-oriented audience, they were limited in what they could do with that, and it kind of really hindered the season. The scariness just didn't come off right, and Eclipso just was a goofy-looking purple elf. There was a lot of things that didn't work for it. So here, this season, it looks like they're back to what made season 1 the better season, in my opinion, for Stargirl. It was a light, uplifting, spunky, and colorful atmosphere, and I think it really worked in this opening episode. I just felt happy to be here in Blue Valley, and it had a refreshing tone to it, and was honestly just nice. I mean, we had the opening music, and everything, but people are all happy, and life's just back to normal. It just felt good, and this truly is the top comics-based TV show for families to watch together. So let's get into this season. Let's
definitely
get going on the right star-spangled feet, because that's what I felt.
Yeah, I agree.
Gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the universe.
So, well, actually, I threw a couple notes in ahead of your notes. I just wanted to make point of these. The opening scene, we see Zeke. Remember Zeke? He's the guy who helped add all the attachments to Stripe, the robot there, the flamethrower arm and all that kind of stuff. We see him still helping out at the garage, and the happy-go-lucky music's playing, and Jakeem's riding on his bike, and Zeke waves at him with this big fanboy kind of smile on his face. And that just got me thinking, he must know what's going on and who everybody is, because he looked quite excited and quite happy to be kind of on the up and up, or in the know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think he obviously knows some stuff from last season, and whether he knows everything, I don't know, but I think he's just happy to help. And he's got his junkyard, and he's bringing parts over to the garage, and happy to help out. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Totally. So
now the other thing I wanted to bring up was that opening music. It was Coming to America, and I'm glad you fixed it in here, because I had John Cougar for some reason, and it's Neil Diamond. I don't know why I thought John Cougar Mellencamp, but anyway, I just thought it was a great way to start off and kind of reintroduce everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Touching back to kind of where we last saw all of our characters at the end of summer, and now summer's over and life is getting back to normal routines. And that's what I mean. Like, this episode just had this uplifting, good vibe to it right from the get-go, and I was just feeling it, and it was fun.
Yeah, and that's the thing I like about the JSA. It's set in pretty much the golden age, and so it's and this universe that Stargirl is set in is a lighter hearted universe, and like you said, bringing it back to some of the season 1 vibes. But yeah, that music, it just made me smile both times I watched the episode, and it's like, just gets you going. So
exactly. So that's kind of that's how you want to start a show and start a new season, is just give you that good feeling, and it makes people excited and ready for it. So
yeah. So we kind of tag teamed this week on the notes, because it was extremely busy for me this week with the first week of students in school. And so we're kind of tag teaming on the notes. So the first section up I called Starman and Stripe. And Sylvester has been busy earning his keep this summer at the house, and he has repaired all of the damages and made it even better than
marble countertop.
And he made a case for Cosmo and a place for himself in the basement, and so he's been really working hard while they've been away.
Yeah, and the first thought, when they come home and he's like, "Welcome home, family," and they're like, "How's your summer?" I thought, he stayed in the house all of that time. Like, wow, they've given Starman a lot of trust by just leaving him to their house to do whatever he wants. And I guess Pat and him have a long history together and friendship, so sure, they trust him, but I just found that kind of funny. Like, hey, they just they gave him a lot.
Yeah.
And then with him, trying to repair all the damage and keep himself busy and stuff, to me, I kind of, as we listened to his story and his discussion with Courtney throughout the episode and with Pat, I kind of got the feeling that he was keeping himself busy so he wasn't so distracted by the hero stuff and the desire to go do hero stuff, because I think he's feeling a little bit out of water right now. I mean, imagine you just and we'll talk about this point in a minute, but you just wake up from the dead basically, and you don't know what to do. It's how many years later, and
right.
So he's probably just trying to feel alive, just trying to do stuff, and Pat's the one guy that he knows and remembers from his time period, and he's trying to help him out. So
yeah, and the thing about it that really hit me the second time is, and we may talk about it more, but like he's never really had a life other than being a hero.
Right.
And so maybe he is testing out what it's like to be Sylvester and not be Starman, and find out who he is outside of that, because like it seems like, at least in the comics, he grew up being a hero, and he was like, so he's never been really like had an alter ego, I believe, and so maybe it's him trying to figure out who he is. So.
Yeah, good point.
So my favorite scene is, and we'll hear it later, is him admiring Stripe, and we'll get to that later, but I just love the fact that he and Pat can have a fun flight together, and they end up having a fun time saving a jet. It just makes me happy to see the two of them having a good time together and not being so serious, but just maybe being a little more equal footing, but just having fun together. That was just fun to see.
Yeah, it's funny when you say they saved a plane full of people. I thought he was just in civilian clothes. He wasn't dressed in a Starman outfit either when he left. He was in like jeans and a leather jacket, so yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. It was fun to see them having such a good buddy time together. And I think it's really good for Pat, because we haven't seen Pat really have any friends in this town other than Crusher trying to be his friend. But it was just so much fun for Pat, because Pat, as we've all discussed over the last couple of seasons, he's one of our favorite characters. And I just really enjoyed him being like that, because when they came in the door and they're just yakking and reminiscing about everything that just happened, they're being teenagers again, teen boys. And I just laughed. It was so much fun. And I just think it's so good for Pat, because he needed to have that. But then I thought there's another side of it why I think it's good for Pat. Because I think having Stripe now, Starman kind of suddenly gave him a respect that maybe Pat never got from him before when he was just Stripesy.
Right.
Because Stripesy, it was just Pat in a striped sweater. He couldn't fight crime. He couldn't do anything. And he was always told to stay behind because it was too dangerous. And we saw in a lot of the flashbacks last season them doing that to him and not really respecting him and treating him like an adult. But now with Stripe, Starman kind of sees that Pat can keep up, and then now they can enjoy being heroes together as well as friends and get to share that stuff. So I think there's two different angles to why this is really good for Pat. And it's the point I didn't write in the notes here, but it just hit me just now, is I have a feeling Crusher's going to have issue with that, because Crusher wants to be his best friend.
You have a friend triangle instead of a love triangle, a bromance triangle.
Exactly. Now the thing that I noticed, did you notice as soon as they all came home, Pat has lost some weight, like the actor playing Pat. Why can't I think Luke Wilson has lost some weight? He looks trim and in really good shape, and he grew out his facial hair and he got a haircut. I mean, he looks really good. So he's obviously was doing something during the off season.
Yeah, I will look and see what that is, but yeah. And one thing I want to bring up is we talked about this on our Patreon post, and I brought up the fact that we got to see some stuff in the comic.
Yeah.
But one thing in the comic that I think I want us to look out for this season to see if it's brought up is Pat and even Sylvester's age.
Oh.
Because in the comic, they meet a former villain, the Needle, who is much older. And in the comic, we see some flashbacks. And so we know in the comics in general that the JSA aged well because of magic. So I kind of want us to keep an eye out on what they're going to talk about this season, if they're going to bring it up, and if they're going to talk about, if the, why they look younger than they actually are, and things like that. Because in the comic, Courtney asks how old he is, and he tells her not to bring it up to her mom. So just keep that in mind. Like, let's put a pin in that, and let's talk about, look and see if we get any hints this season of how they're going to explain in universe how they've kept young and healthy for so long. So keep that in mind.
We never talked about it last season. Last season was all about Eclipso. It hasn't been since season 1 that we were questioning how old is Pat, because we saw those flashbacks and the little bits with him and the janitor, the Shining Knight there.
Yeah,
that they're both from a different time period, and they both came forward through time somehow, and we never ever came back to it. So that is fascinating. Did he say in the comic how old he is when she asked?
No, but he said like they bring up the conversation of how old are you, because the guy's older, and so they don't give an exact age, but you get the point of that he was like a teen in maybe the 50s, and so he would be he's kind of around our age now, so he wouldn't be, he looks a lot younger than he actually would be. So
yeah, that'll be interesting to find out. It'd be neat if they came back to it and brought that storyline back, that bit of time travel, just to give something really deep for Pat's character to dive into. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you think about it, if he's 20, 30 years older than he's supposed to be, then him and Barbara, they're quite a age gap there.
Yeah. That's why I think he says to Court, "Don't tell your mom."
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna kind of bridge the gap here and go to Starman and Stargirl. So I wanted to delve into this because Sylvester says that he, didn't want to come back for the staff. But he said that he was just grateful that Cosmo bonded with Courtney, and that bond, he thinks, actually brought him back from the dead. Yeah. And so, he was kind of looking to see what was going on, because he didn't know it had bonded with Courtney. He was just looking for the staff and what brought him back. And so that was an interesting kind of little conversation there.
Well, yeah, that's why I want to talk a little more in detail about this, because
sure,
we were talking about this on the Patreon special episode. How did he come back? Because he shows up at the end of season 2, and we're like, well, did he die? Was he dead? Did Pat actually bury him? We had so many questions. So now we're like, well, how did he come back? We were thinking about it. Was he actually dead? And it turns out he was, because he says, I actually woke up in my grave and had to crawl and dig my way out. So this bond with Cosmo is able to revive people from death, even it seems like this could be 30 years later, right? So,
yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not quite 30, but it's
20?
Close.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, that bond with Cosmo, I think, is the big thing. But the fact too that even digging his way out of that, you know, breaking out of the coffin and digging his way out, he says he was perfectly fine once he got out. Like,
Yeah.
like, you know, no, like, messed up hands from the digging and the beating and, like, injuries. Like, so, you know, it has me questioning, like, does he have some form of invulnerability now? Was that just a temporary effect of him being brought back and now it's worn off? Like, can he be damaged or hurt? I mean, that just brings up a ton of questions.
Well, and that's something I don't think we've ever discussed. If we know that about Starman and Stargirl, is when they're carrying Cosmo, are they somewhat impenetrable and impervious? Do they have a protection barrier like that?
I don't know. I mean, I'll have to go back and look at what their powers are and see, you know, what we've heard. I mean, we've seen Courtney get hurt, but, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it's different for him. I don't know if it's like if it's powered up now with Cosmo. We just don't know, and what the rules are for this universe as opposed to the comics. So questions.
And we got no answers about Cosmo either. Like, it's a cosmic staff. Where is its power coming from? We know somewhat the comic book story, like somebody built it and created it, but where's the power come from? Why is it alive? Why is it sentient?
Yeah.
We haven't gotten those answers yet, so I hope that stuff comes too.
Yeah, and like we talked about in our Patreon call, you know, in the comics, they shared Cosmo, but also Starman, when he was first starting out, before he had Cosmo, and then even after, had like cosmic, I forget what they called, like, they're basically like Nightwing's
batons.
Batons. So Starman had a type of those.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if, you know, somehow this season we'll get to see him get those, and so that we can have two heroes rather than, and he can go off on his own if he needs to. But I just love that it opens up a ton of doors for us to speculate and talk about in the midst of this fun, upbeat episode. We've still got mythology and like speculations to dig into.
Yeah, and that's going to come around again. That the talk about the Cosmo staff and him. We'll come back to that again. But yeah, no, you're right. It presented with some mysteries and questions, because I mean, he was pretty happy, jolly fellow, which we're going to start talking about here in a minute. So yeah, let's get to your next point.
Yeah, so after his hero times with Stripe in this episode, we see that, you know, he really has second thoughts about, you know, examining, you know, his real reason for coming. And in the midst of this, Courtney agrees to share the staff with him. Basically, I'm at school, you can have the staff, and when I'm home, I get the staff, and you know, he'll teach her. And so they kind of agree on a Cosmo sharing agreement.
Yeah, it's just funny because you knew the hero bug would bite him again. Kind of that once a hero, always a hero thing. I mean, we've seen it so many times before. When a hero tries to give up being a hero or just decide, I'm going to lead a normal life, and then something happens, they can't turn their backs on people in need. And they can't turn their back on just that spark of, I could just fly one more time. I'm just going to use my X-ray vision one more time. Like, they can't. They just, it's in them. It's part of them. So we knew this was going to happen for him too.
Yeah, definitely. So watching it the first time and then watching it the second time, 90% of me wants to believe he's a hero, and a golden age one at that. He wants what's best for Stargirl and Cosmo.
Yeah.
But even in the JSA comics, it was hard for those heroes to pass down the mantle. So I can see some of that here, like the positivity, the wanting to do, the being pulled back in like you were talking about. But then there's the other 10% of me that's suspicious that all of this is just too good to be true, and maybe he's brainwashed, he's an evil clone, or something else is going on that we don't know about yet, because there's these little hints and things that we see throughout the episode, and you're like, is it just a little bit too much? What kind of reaction was that? What's going on in this? Is he being too ingratiating? So what are your thoughts, Flash?
Well, that is the big question. And if you remember, I keep bringing up when we first saw him show up again and he tracked down Pat's old wife, ex-wife, the waitress at the restaurant. He was being really weird and kind of creepy. And after he talked to her and he goes back out into his car, he looks in the rearview mirror of the car and he's touching his face and feeling his cheeks and it looked like he was making sure everything was okay still. And that made me question him right away. What's going on there? Is he a shapeshifter? Is he wearing some type of mask that looked, some type of technology in a mask that makes him look just like him? What was he checking? But finding out now that he woke up out of the grave, maybe that didn't happen too much time before he went to see the waitress. So maybe he was just looking in the mirror like, really? I'm alive. As he's feeling himself like, holy, why do I look like this still? I'm dead. I should be, decrepit and zombie looking. So maybe there's nothing to that scene. I don't know. But like you were talking about here, one of the big questions is, was he way too over the top here? Did he step a little too far into the fake and unbelievable side of things with his act? Or is he truly of the golden age and just that decent like everything is a Leave It to Beaver lifestyle. If you guys know that old black and white TV show, Leave It, where it's the perfect house with the white picket fence and mom and dad and everything's just perfect. If you remember in the flashbacks that we saw over the last 2 seasons, where every time we saw a bit of history for Pat or the JSA, he wasn't that nice of a fellow back then.
No.
He was a bit rough, a bit edgy, and wasn't very kind to Pat. So this version of him is pretty different, although Pat seems to be okay with it. It doesn't look like Pat's questioning it at all. So maybe we never saw this side of Starman from back in time. I don't know.
Yeah, the only thing that gets me is Pat says, he never apologizes. So
yes, right.
So I think Pat is genuinely happy to have his friend back and happy to share some adventures and happy that his somebody that he helped along the way, but also he was a sidekick to, wants to include him and appreciates him. And so I don't know where it's going to land.
And maybe that's all it is. Maybe Sylvester is just so grateful to be back alive, to have a second chance again, that I just want to help. Like, I'm alive. I died in the fight. Like, holy cow, this is my, I'm grateful. Maybe that's all it is. But, it's a comic book show, and something always has to happen. So is it going to be with Starman that something happens? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I have another question. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, and I said we'll come back around to it. When the time comes that Courtney and Sylvester both need the staff, whether it's because they're both in need or they both want to go fight or whatever, which one is Cosmo going to go to? Again, talking back to our Patreon discussions, an idea came up that maybe Starman does make something else for himself. Maybe he makes another pair of powered batons or something. Maybe Zeke helps him. I mean, Zeke seems like a pretty handy fella, so maybe they work together and, I don't know, give him a new powered weapon. Because we have to question, I don't think Stargirl and Starman can be both here. I don't think Starman can be around for good, because I don't know if that makes good story sense to have both of them here. So are we going to get a season of Starman training Courtney, having us question him all along, but in the end, it's just him being nice. He's got a second chance at life, and we're only going to get this one season with him. And could there possibly be a sacrifice at the end? Could we lose him at the end? He's got this great second chance at life, and then he has to sacrifice himself to save Courtney or something. I don't know. I just don't think it makes story writing sense for the two of them to be here all the way through anymore.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's going to be here I don't see him being here for longer than a season. And maybe that's where we get the Infinity Inc. parts 1 and 2, where he spins off and maybe he takes Jade and Obsidian and some others and goes off and does something else that, like, we'll check in on them from time to time, but they'll be in universe, but not like directly on the show. Right. Because I think one of the big things that I really have missed in this show that's in the comics is that passing of the mantle of the younger generation spending time with the older generation, getting that teaching, and then they step back and let the younger generation take over. Because that's something that I would really like to see. I mean, we've seen that on The Flash with Jay kind of mentoring Barry, and and doing that, and we just, Pat's there, but like he wasn't like the hero. He wasn't out front. He was a sidekick. And so we had a little bit of that with Dr. Ben Niter last season. Not fully there, fully fleshed out, but we got to see a little bit of the passing the torch. Yep. But I'm liking that maybe we get to see this season of Starman working with Stargirl, training her, helping her know how to use stuff. And in the midst of this season, we get to see him have, like you said, some type of powered staffs, and then we get to see him take Infinity Inc. off and, go out there and fight the good fight in another place. But when we need a team up, we've got them to call in. Because honestly, I feel like if they do have him sacrifice himself at the end of the season, that's what we saw at the beginning of the series, of like he was sacrificing himself to protect the JSA and to make sure Pat and the others could get away. So I don't know. I don't really want them to go that well twice. So maybe giving him this, spin-off of, like, I don't think we'll see an Infinity Inc. series, but maybe spinning him off in the universe, and then he can come back for advice and things like that. So that's kind of my hope and my prediction.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think with what you were talking about, even more so than on The Flash, I think the perfect example of that is the Young Justice cartoon. That's what it's all about. It's all about the younger heroes learning and being trained under the Justice League, and them being sent out on, lesser missions so they don't get hurt, to prove themselves and to get training and to learn, and eventually they, one by one, they start graduating to become full-fledged Justice League members. And that's kind of what this is about. I mean, that they could change this to being Young Justice and, do a live action kind of thing like that. It would be really fun. But it's the timeline that throws it off. This is still JSA type of timeline like you were talking about. So still, that's kind of what they're doing, because our heroes are very young. I mean, we said they're 14 and 15 is what we figured out to be, except for Jack and Cindy. Rick and Cindy, they're a couple years older, it seems.
Yeah. So and Mike is a freshman. Yeah. This year, Mike and Jakeem would be freshmen.
Much younger, so Yeah, pretty much. So. So there you go. Good little talk there.
All right, so let's dig into the Gambler. So the Gambler is back in town, and he is living at the Cornhusker something RV park.
Yeah.
And he comes to make amends with Pat and Courtney. And he says he wants to do better because he found out, when he was trying to erase himself off the web, that he found out that he's got a daughter, Becky. So, what are your thoughts on this, Flash?
Well, my thought is a question. Do we believe him on that he has a daughter? Or, here's where my thought process went. Is he trying to pull a poker-like bluff on their good-hearted nature by giving them a sob story? Because we know that is what Courtney falls for. She falls for the sob story, and she gives everybody a chance and gives them the benefit of the doubt. I mean, he is the gambler, and that's what his shtick is fooling everybody. Like I said, bluffing them into everything. So that's where I'm left with that question on him, and we're going to talk about the gambler throughout here because he does come around a couple times. So I got some more thoughts as we start to see his story play out in this episode. I got a few more thoughts that will come back around to him. But right now I'm just saying, do we believe him? Because he is the gambler.
Well, here's the interesting thing, and we'll talk about his cameras later, but we see that scene kind of end with like this shot of a camera.
Yeah.
And then later at the end of the episode, we see that he's got cameras. So whether like, is he trying to fully redeem himself? I don't know. Like, I believe he's got a daughter, and we're gonna get, because one's been cast, we're gonna get to see a daughter. So I believe him on that. But like, I don't, like, he may say that he's trying to redeem himself, but he's not fully like given up that life yet of being the IT guy for the ISA and looking and having all that info. So I would put him further down the line than the Crocks of like wanting to reform. Like, I believe he's got a daughter.
Yeah.
And I believe he's trying to do better, but like, I don't think he is like as close as the Crocks are. So,
well, and you brought that point up, so I'll get into that now. Like, it seems like he's doing better, and I'm right. I agree with you about him having a daughter, because it kind of does seem like he wants to be there for her, because as the episode's going on, he keeps looking at that picture of her hanging by the lampshade, and he's got tears in his eyes, and there's soft music playing. He's looking at her with such fondness, and he's writing her a letter, and he's crying. Like, that to me is all very legit. So I definitely think that this has happened. He did find a daughter, and, well, he found a girl that he thinks is his daughter. Maybe that could be the twist, that she ends up not even being related to him. But there's emotion there for him, and he, at least that part of his story is true, that he's wants to make a story of himself that she can be proud of once she finds out that her dad is out there. Yeah.
However, the Crocks tell the Dugans not to trust him, and the Shade runs him off from the diner there. So
so that's two members of his former team saying not to trust him. So if the original bad guys who were on the same team with him don't even trust him, then why should we, and why should our good guys? Like I said, he's the gambler. He'll backstab anybody to win the game. That's his thing. So that was my thought too. I mean, they are like, they weren't the top tier of the ISA, and the gambler was a little more top tier than the Crocks and even the Shade. And so I think when they say don't trust him, listen. Totally. Yep.
Yeah. So since we've talked a little bit about him looking into his daughter, and he's there in the campground, the RV park, and he's searching for his daughter, and then his computer is hacked, and he's looking at the cameras, and there's a camera that's been added, and it's outside of his RV. He goes out to investigate, and he's killed, and the RV is just like trash. There's a hole in the side of it there.
Yeah. We'll come back to that point in a minute here. So this was interesting, because the cameras, I have questions about that. who's watching, because there was only one scene where we saw through somebody's eyes looking at the trailer from behind a tree, and all we saw was like a grayed out shoulder and like the side of a head kind of thing. We're looking over somebody's shoulder looking at him, and I couldn't tell if it was a guy, if it was a girl. I had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. So somebody has hacked into his security cameras that were all over the place. Because I was asking how is there cameras all over the city looking at everybody that we know, and nobody seems to know. Nobody knows that they're being spied on, because there was one looking directly at Pat's house.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of those he could have had in place when he was there originally.
Yeah, true.
And like setting everything up.
Yeah.
And then he's just come back in and reactivated them.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
And this is the funny thing. Like, this episode was called Chapter 1, The Murder. Yet it took to the last, 5-10 seconds for actually to have the murder happen.
Right.
So I was like, okay, you probably could have called it something different. The lead up to the murder. I don't know. But this is the first time I watched it, I was like, wait a second. We didn't actually see him get killed, but yet later on he's laying there on the ground. But the second time through, I caught it. I missed it the first time through. When he's walking outside of his trailer and he's looking at the camera, he spots it and he's walking slowly towards it. You see him turn real quick to the side, and there's this loud animal-like growl, and then the camera goes blank. So I'm like, what was that? I mean, a large animal type of growl and a rumble, it almost sounded like a big robotic cougar is the only thing I could really liken it to. And it grabs him, and then later on a few seconds later, he's laying dead on the ground, and we'll get to that scene in a moment. But it just makes me wonder, why would they focus this episode so heavily on the gambler? Why would they bring him back and have all that fanfare about him having a daughter and have this emotional connection to that storyline, and then just kill him? I don't understand that. Like, that's a lot to bring this actor back after all this time just to off him in one episode.
Well, I think, we've talked about this whole season is a murder mystery, and the episodes are, Frenemies is the main one, but then each episode has a subtitle.
Okay.
So, like, episode 2 is The Suspects.
Right.
So, I think we are going to see, like I said, his daughter has been casted as going to be in the series. I think we will get to see flashbacks to his life and see who maybe the suspects are, and see flashbacks to why they're suspects.
And flashbacks to who the mom is and when he actually had this girl.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the actor is going to be there, but it's going to be in flashbacks throughout this season. And so I think that's the case. And now, like, how like, he's written a letter to the daughter. Now, like, is she going to come looking for him and then find out? And, like, I'm thinking that's how they're going to do it. Is like, we're going to see more of him, but it's going to be like flashbacks of, like, these are people we suspect. Like, we get introduced, and we'll talk about it later, to the gang that he once ran with.
Yeah.
And so, like, are they suspects? Why would they want to get, I'm thinking we're get to see flashbacks, and that's how we're going to get to see more of the actor and the gambler in this season.
Or he'll just be laying on the slab at the morgue. All right, we need you in for today. Just come here, lay on this metal table for, a couple scenes. But so the other thought I had too is when you say this season is a murder mystery, is this going to be the only murder?
I don't know.
Because
honestly, I don't.
Would they base an entire season on killing the gambler and trying to figure out who did it? Like, are we that invested in the gambler character to want to spend a season figuring out who killed him? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to balance this. Frenemies and this murder storyline, they're both going to be going at the same time, so that maybe that's how they're going to balance things out, is like you will be dealing with people, frenemies, and also this murder investigation. That's how they're going to balance it out. But maybe this murder is just the first in, a line of ones that, a dominoes effect. So I don't know.
Well, if it's going to take after the game Clue, there has to be more than one.
Yeah.
Just as they're trying to figure out one death, someone else dies, and then the implications point to somebody else, and it gets all confusing. Like, what?
Yes.
So it'll be fun. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, me too. All right, so next up we have the JSA and friends, or frenemies. So the shade has settled in Blue Valley, but he still can't get a good cuppa from the diner.
Yeah.
But they're trying. She's trying to make him a good cup of tea. So
his performance when she walked away and he was trying to be polite, and then when the waitress left, the look on his face and how awful the tea tasted, like that was pretty good. But how cool is it that he's just here as a main character, it seems? Mm-hmm. Like, I love the Shade was one of my favorite. He was, if it wasn't for Icicle, the Shade would have been the coolest character that we've had so far, villain-wise.
Yeah. I'm glad that they're keeping him on this season, because he brings a lot of class. And like we were saying last season, he's that kind of anti-hero, that gray character. But like he is very endearing. So
and it's all because of the actor. Like the performance is just amazing. So my questions though for him is he's looks like he's living a normal life, because we see him go outside to pick up the morning paper and he's going for his tea. But what is he doing? What's he spending his time with? Does he have a job? Does he have a
right?
What's that?
I said right. I'm wondering the same thing.
And I'm sure that's going to come. We as long as he is the main character, we'll start to see his story fleshed out. But what is he doing? Like, is he going to run the museum? Is he going to I don't know what he's going to do. So that's what I'm curious about. I don't know. Now the other question I have: what is wrong with his power? Because after he chases the gambler out, like he chases him out, he makes his eyes go all dark and misty, and his voice gets really deep, and he scares them off. But then we see him wipe a tear of like black smoke from his eye, and then he rubs it in his fingers, and it starts to spark. These little green sparks start to come out of it, and then it fizzles away. What's going on there?
Yeah, I wonder if he is not fully connected with the Shadow Realm anymore, if it's bleeding over, like he's not as much in control and it's taking over a little bit more than he would like. I don't know, but it does bring up questions of he was injured pretty heavily last season and he recovered, but we see after effects of that, because I just don't know. It's a good question. I was wondering the same thing.
The only thing I could think of is that he's losing his connection to the Shadow Realm, where he gets his power from, because he's trying to just live now, and he's not ducking into the Shadow Realm every once in a while and maybe recharging his power almost like a battery.
Right.
Maybe staying away from it, he starts to slowly lose his connection to it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Next up, we've got the Crocks, who are literally running around town with no fear of the police. I mean, how did they pull this off? Is question one. And just being that brazen. But then again, I do love their interactions with Pat and Barbara, because just seeing their interactions are just hilarious. I mean, I'm loving this dynamic between the two couples.
Yeah. So much so. So this is something else we talked about on Patreon as well. We're like, they're obviously here to stay, and they're main characters, but how are they avoiding the law? We have no idea why the law isn't after them. And the one thing I brought up is there was an interview with these two actors on Entertainment Tonight, and they were asked this exact same question. How are you guys not being caught? And the actress playing Tigress, she simply stated, we're just really good at hiding the evidence. So maybe that's how they got off the hook. Maybe they hid the evidence for this case against them being bad guys, and it couldn't stand up in court because there's no evidence to prove all these allegations against them. So they're scot-free now. Maybe that's what it is.
Who knows? Who knows? But but like I said, I love the dynamic.
It is so much fun. You are so right. I mean, this is my favorite one of the story ideas for this season is having the Crocks be neighbors and be there and be in Pat and the Dugans' faces now. Because like you said, the Crocks are hilarious. The relationship with the Dugans is so entertaining to watch. I love seeing Pat be all uncomfortable but yet still trying to be friendly, while Crusher just wants to be his buddy. Like he shows up in his house. Hey, I'm making you a spirulina smoothie, and we're gonna get you back into shape. And like he just lets himself in, and it's like 5 a.m. and he's running the blender, and he's like so overboard, and he doesn't think anything's wrong with it because hey, I'm the good guy next door, right? Like.
Right.
Oh, it's so much fun. That's definitely my favorite part. I can't wait to see more of them.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Tigress for a second, because she pays a visit to Barbara at work to explain that Artemis just wants to join the team. Which was, she's like arguing for her daughter, like, hey, she just wants to be part of a team. She's really good. She could, if she needs to prove herself, she will, no problem. But the way she approaches Barbara about it isn't very friendly. And I just find it so funny because Tigress really struggles with being nice. And, she can fake it for a little while, but when she needs something or wants something, it's like she's gritting her teeth to be friendly. And even though she might think she's coming off to Barbara as like, hey, my daughter wants to be part of the team, Barbara was really uneasy sitting in her chair, just like, okay, sure. It was pretty funny. And here's the other thought that I had about it. We were talking about this on Patreon as well. We were talking about Barbara. She was useless last season. She had nothing to do. She's a character that they could have done without, which is unfortunate because she's the mom of Stargirl, but they gave her nothing last season. So I was watching this episode and it made me think, maybe this is a story angle that'll actually give her something to play with. This interaction with the Tigress, with the neighbor across the street. Maybe that's a story that'll give some entertainment for us as viewers to enjoy Barbara's scenes, because we got nothing with her last season. So I don't know, it could be fun. I think.
Yeah, like I said, we got to see some of her past and gave her some insight there last season. But I agree, this could be a very fun dynamic of her teaching Tigress how to be a little more laid back and a little more, just. I just the funny thing was, like, when Tigress said, like, she almost like had to spit out Justice Society of America, just like you could just see the pain on her face there. But like, you see the love that they have for Artemis, making them willing to make changes. And the how they're willing to go that far to do it, and then you kind of counter that with looking what the Gambler's doing. So maybe, like you said, we get to see some Barbara, teaching her how to like be a better mom and be a little more laid back, and then maybe we get to see. Tigress teach Barbara some tips and tricks and things like that. So who knows?
Kung fu?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it not only is it going to be entertaining, but it's just, I mean, there's so much we can talk about with the Crocks. Like, how long will it last? Can these two hold it up and be good guys all the way through, or is something going to just get to them where they're fed up? They're frustrated with trying to be good, that they're going to snap and go back to being the criminals that they are. That's kind of my question for them too. If any of these second chance storylines that it looks like we're getting this season of villains trying to be good, I think it's the Crocks that might be the first ones to snap and go back. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's just my feeling. But you know, one thing that we talked about, I think we talked about it last season, or at least I mentioned it a couple times, is that as much as we have villains on this show, this TV show really goes out of their way. The writing really is written to show that even the villains are good parents. And we talked about that with Icicle. He was like the best dad on the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
definitely.
The Crocks, you might not agree with their, they're very strict and very militant, like with Artemis, but they're still really good parents. They love her and they support her, even when she wants to join the good guy teams. Like you just said, Tigress is gritting her teeth, but she's like, this is what my daughter wants. I'm going to help her make it happen. They're good parents. So it's funny. The villains are really good parents. And yeah.
Yep. Well, getting into the JSA side of it, the JSA evidently had a split vote, but yet Cindy/Shiv is a part of the team now. Courtney seems to want to explain it, but Yolanda and Rick are not having it. They voted against it. So
yeah, which, like you said, makes it a split vote. So Rick and Yolanda are really not happy about this, about the fact that Cindy is trying to be on the team or is part of the team. We really, it's not really fully confirmed. But what I see in them is they just don't have that same forgiveness, kind of second chance generosity that Courtney has. So I'm not fully sure that Cindy is a shoo-in just yet. I think Courtney's trying to convince them to let her be and just to let her hang out with us and feel it out and let her prove herself. I think that's kind of where we're at right now. Yeah. To maybe get them to swing their votes to the other side. I don't know.
Yeah, and they've had the harder lives to deal with. And, Yolanda especially from Cindy. But, they've had the harder lives. So I can see, not giving second chances would be, it'd just be harder for them. And so I can understand that. Yeah. So, yeah. So, Cindy does seem to be trying to be better. She's trying to help others. She's helping the lady with her groceries and stuff like that and to fit in. But I don't think until she becomes an anti-hero or a gray character that things are going to work out well. She's got to determine that she can't be the hero, but she can be not a villain. She can be an anti-hero. She can be a gray character. She can maybe take a page out of the Shades book and be there, but not. She doesn't have to be goody-goody. I mean, we talked about her last season admiring the Whitmore Dugan family and just the dynamic that she's never had of a family, and she's got to find her own path too. So
now, a lot of things you just said are in my thoughts. I'm going to say to answer this point.
Yeah,
because we see her help that old lady across the street and carry her groceries, like you said. But as she passes the lady and realizes, oh, here's my opportunity to do a good deed, she rolls her eyes at first. But then she goes and does the deed with a smile on her face. So, she's like, I got to do the nice things. That's kind of like the attitude. But then she goes and helps the old lady, and it seems like she genuinely enjoys doing that because she's got the smile on her face. So my honest thoughts right now is I think she's going to actually try to be good this season. Another point you guys missed on the Patreon feed is that, which you just brought up, Cindy has no family, no firm support system behind her. She never got that type of upbringing. And I think seeing what Courtney has, she wants part of that. She wants that family and that feeling of being cared about or by somebody to care about her well-being and to take care of her and to be, her support. So I think she's going to try to win that for herself, by trying to prove to the team that she can do it, because she just wants to get that. I don't know where she's going to get the family support from, but she'll at least get the friendships and the people having her back, because she never had that from anybody.
Right.
So my early speculation is I think she's going to win everyone over and be a good guy. I don't know if she's gonna. I think she won't ever go back to being a bad guy. But I do agree with you that
I
might
agree.
not last. She's gonna try it for a while. She's gonna win them all over, but she's eventually not gonna agree with the goody-goody style of doing things, where she feels like, you know what? In order to beat this guy, I'm gonna have to go smack him down. We can't talk to him and be friendly. He needs a beat down. That's how we're gonna. And I just think that's what's gonna slide her over into the gray area. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I don't see her going back to be a villain. Because she sees that doesn't work. So.
Right.
So we got a couple points here. During this episode, we get to see some follow-up from last season from both Rick and Beth.
Yes.
And Beth's parents are there for her like never before. And they're designing her a new suit and a new code name, and they're making her food, and they're there for her. I assume they're not divorced anymore, talking about divorce. But you can tell she finds it a bit smothering after living her life of basically having to parent herself and parent them. Now it's the other way around, and she's like,
Yeah, it's definitely fine. I wonder how long they're going to keep that up. Like, it's something I don't want to see all the time, because it was already a little bit like, a little bit gag me. But it's funny because the situation is flipped now, and we'll have to see. Maybe Beth eventually does accept their help, and they do help design her a new suit or something. I don't know if they have the knowledge to do that, but it's fun. It's just not something I want to see a lot of. So we'll see what they do with it.
right, just.
But for Rick though, I like Rick's stuff here.
Yeah, so he's been using his Hourman powers to dig up and bury Grundy in the places that the Shade has told him would like resurrect him, and he's having no luck. And so we see like he's rebuilt the hourglass there, and he's making sure he's got his timer going, but he's just extremely frustrated because nothing's working.
Well, yeah, I laugh. You say rebuilt the hourglass. It looks kind of strung together with duct tape. It's kind of like he got it piecemealed back together. And he checks his watch, and he has 30 minutes before his power resets and whatever. So he's obviously really, really trying to save Grundy and bring him back, but he's getting frustrated with it. And it's just an interesting story for Rick. Rick is one of my favorite characters. I love his backstory, and I love the character and what I see coming for him. And we also talked about this, the Stargirl trailer. There's a glimpse in the newest the last trailer they released of him changing into Hourman, but he doesn't have the hourglass hanging around his chest. It looks like it's almost like a tattoo on his chest or something, and you see it light ablaze, and then there's all this golden light forming around him, sort of like the suit is just kind of growing out of this golden light and forming around him, but it doesn't complete. The scene changes before you see the whole thing. So somewhere along the line this season, Rick is going to change how he becomes Hourman. And we talked about it. Like, we know he's a super smart guy. They showed us that storyline last season, which is also why I like Rick so much. He's a really, really smart guy. He takes after his dad, and he's been studying the book and the journal and stuff. So he's going to figure something out to not have to wear a little glass vial around his neck anymore. He's going to figure something out, or he's going to come across something of his dad's, and it's somehow going to get... I don't know if the power gets absorbed into him or if it's magical. I don't know what's going on there, but all I can tell you guys is, like, go watch the most recent trailer. Just search Stargirl Season 3 trailer on YouTube, and you'll see it's like a 2-second moment where he's just lighting, like, this golden blaze just kind of encompasses him, and you see his gloves and his hood and the hourglass just starting to form around him. I was like, whoa, what's going on there? So that's going to be really cool to see.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to that, of him making it his own and not, being that classic feel. And I think that's just another step of, coming into his own as a member of the JSA and making our man his own. So.
Yep.
So Beth gets an alert, and the JSA goes out on patrol to stop a gang that was once affiliated with the Gambler. And they're all going, after these guys, and Cindy's like, we're going, all of us, after like 5 guys with $ masks. But then all of a sudden, Artemis comes in and knocks out the entire gang before they can, even lift a finger. And she's trying out for the JSA.
She's the only one that got a fight sequence in this episode. That's what's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The dollar store mask was a funny comment by Cindy. I love this scene. I thought Artemis was awesome. Like father, like daughter, using the different weapons. Like mother, like daughter, using the martial arts of Tigress. That one split kick she did at the end to take the last 2 guys out was really well done. It was filmed good. It was choreographed well. It was awesome. And what I also really liked is she really looks like Artemis now. Like the outfit they gave her, that is really starting to come into play from the Justice League cartoon. That's Artemis. So it was cool.
Yeah.
But my idea here is that Cindy looked awfully proud and happy watching this all happen. So she must have had something to do with setting that up.
Yeah, I think you're right. The second time around, I really noticed the smile on her face at the end there, and it was really genuine. And I think it's like you said, last season we really got to see her trying to build her own ISA. And I think she wanted that in building her own team, but I think this is more genuine. She wants Artemis to be a part of the team, and yeah, she may have tipped him off, but I think she was really happy that Artemis enjoyed it, and this looked really good for her. And like I said, I think the smile was just really genuine, not like a smirky I did this. It was really pleased. So yeah, I agree.
And really, Artemis really isn't a bad guy. The whole MO with her is that she just wants to be part of a team. That's why she's the quarterback of the guys' football team. She just wants to be part of a team. That's how she was brought up. That's how the parents raised her, is to be a team player. And if you can, lead the team because you're that good. You're a croc. So that's all that is. So I think she's trying to prove herself, and she's gonna do what it takes. And what actually just struck me is the way she came in and the way she was talking during the fight, making all the comments that she was making. It really reminded me of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. Oh, fun. So the JSA continue their mission, and they are going to ask the Gambler about this gang. And this is where they find him dead, and Shiv holding the smoking gun. Literally. And she says, I didn't do it. So this was the setup there at the end for the whole murder mystery.
And that's going to play right into Rick and Yolanda's argument to get rid of Cindy. Don't let her join the team. But it's obvious it wasn't her. I mean, we see it, that the look on her face was genuine, and she was just kneeling down and just picked the gun up as they were showing up. So we saw that. They didn't see that. So now Courtney and her are going to have to prove that it wasn't her, and that's going to cause, strife amongst the team. And, that's kind of where that story is going for her as well. It's going to look bad for Cindy, and she's going to have to try extra hard to prove herself, and Courtney's going to end up siding with her.
Right. Yeah.
But I want to ask what happened there, because in the previous scene we heard the growl and the Gambler just going, "Huh, what?" And then in this scene we hear kind of like a gunshot go off, but it was a little bit louder. It was like a gunshot and then a bit of reverberation, like metal clanging or something else happened there. And like you said, by the time we see Cindy, the trailer is like caved in, like a friggin' wrecking ball hit it or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the whole side is torn open or pushed open or
so
whatever.
I was like, okay, it sounded like a gunshot kind of, but it also had this weird sound to it. So it was like more like a lightning bolt struck the building or something. I'm really not sure what it was. It obviously wasn't the gun that Cindy was holding, because that it's not going to cause that kind of damage. So
right.
The growl that happens, let's try to, because there's a gap of time we're missing. So the growl happens, and then seemingly moments later there's this big bang of a sound and the trailer gets caved in. So did the gambler get hit by something, or was he just like scratched or clawed or strangled to death and then they destroyed the trailer and that's what the bang sound was? Like, I don't know what to put together there to assess the scene, what we're looking at.
Yeah, and it must have happened like very quickly, because like the gun is still smoking. So like he had enough time to get a shot off. And so like it's just like they're paced at different times in the episode, but in reality they happen like, right then. So
yeah, the gambler shot the gun, obviously, but maybe he missed, and whatever that growl was fired back, and it was a much bigger gun that's caved in the trailer.
Yeah, I don't know.
Crazy. Well, that's all we got. That was our discussion for this episode. I think we kind of it presented a lot of questions, but it was fun. Like, definitely a fun episode. So that takes us into our favorite scenes, which is also fun. Let's do those.
Shape out an eagle.
All right. Well, yours is up first.
All right. I called mine a Starman Praise of Pat. So let's take a listen.
Pat. Okay, what you did with the rocket racer was unbelievable, but this robot? I mean, it's spectacular.
Thanks.
If the rest of the JSA were alive to see this, I mean, they'd be begging you to sit at the table.
Well, I put a lot of work into it.
Yeah, but you need more recognition. I mean, look at this bad boy. You gotta show me what it can do. I want to see this sucker fly. I'm dying to. Please, for old time's sake.
Let's do it.
Great.
Okay.
I'm gonna grab the staff.
The staff?
Well, Pat, how am I gonna keep up with it? It'll be quick.
Yeah, Sylvester, just...
Oh, and Pat, and I think I forgot to say this outright, but thanks for giving me a place to stay. And to make me feel welcome.
Of course.
I really mean it. And to see you with your family succeeding and happy makes me happy too.
Thanks, Sylvester.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about earlier, I don't know if I fully trust him, and I'm kind of torn on where we're at, but what I am happy to see is Pat get praised for his work and all he has done with Stripe and with his family. I think that was even more touching of Sylvester really complimenting Pat on, just what he's done with his family and how he's got this good family. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I just listening to that, Starman does sound really sincere. I can't tell that that's an act. It just sounds like he is so grateful to be here. That's all I'm getting from him. Which could be awesome, because that could be the big twist shock of the season if there's something sinister at play there. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
Mine comes a little while later in the episode, and it is called Stripe, which is also a Pat and Sylvester scene, because they're out on the porch talking about being teammates again and talking about Courtney and everything. But the reason I call this one Stripe is because we actually get the full breakdown of what Stripe stands for. We've been wondering about that. And Pat's he's so proud of his name, and Starman cuts him off, but he does get it out. Stripe stands for Subatomic Tactical Robot Internet Pat Enhancer. And I laughed and laughed. So here's that scene.
Yeah.
Ice cold. Just how you like it.
Thanks.
What a night.
That Courtney, she's something else.
I know it.
I mean, getting you and I both back into the game? Amazing.
You gotta make the most of it. You get a second chance, right?
Second chance like the Crocks? Or the Shade? Dragon King's daughter? Or the Gambler?
I mean, Courtney believes we should. Well, so far, her heart, it hasn't steered us wrong yet.
Heck, I'm not saying she's wrong. These are predators we're dealing with. Every one of them. Even so, to second chances.
Second chances.
And hey, if I'm really back, that means you're officially my sidekick again.
Sidekick?
Starman and Stripesy.
And I've also just been going by just Stripe. It's an acronym for Subatomic Tactical
Gonna be
Robot
fun.
Internet Pat Enhancer. Hey.
The mustache is great.
Think so?
Love it.
Just a fun scene. A Pat Enhancer. That's hilarious. I like Pat. Luke Wilson's just playing him to a T. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
much fun. All right, guys. Well, it's a new season, and we want to remind you again about our Patreon. You guys can be part of all the fun. We mentioned it quite a few times this episode that we had a Patreon hangout talking about preseason of Stargirl, and we tried to do that as often as we can. Once a month is kind of that, if we can do it. Just hanging out with our Patreoners and just talking about whatever topics we come up with, and it's a lot of fun. So if you guys want to be part of that,
Yeah.
as well as also showing your support for the show and all the work that we do, just listen to this.
If you'd like to support our podcast, you can do so at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/tomorrowslegends. Don't keep it to yourself now. Come on, baby, talk to us. It's feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, feedback. Get back into the jingles again. That's good.
Nice.
All right, feedback we got to start us off is a voicemail from Dreamweaver, who is first this week. Can you imagine?
Yay!
Here she is.
Hello, Cosmic Crew. Here we finally are, the start of Stargirl Season 3. And, while I'm excited, I must address my sentiments the last time we talked. And by that, I mean the last time we talked in this feed and my comments on the Season 2 finale. I must say that I have been up and down on Stargirl in the past, what with its really strong first season but rushed finale, and then with an inconsistent Season 2 that at the end of the day didn't mix the humor with the horror as well as it could, ending with a dissatisfying final battle and reset on all the character development, which is a pattern I'm hoping we won't see this season. But with that said, and since Legends cancellation and my continual quest for knowledge and understanding of the film and television industry and all its inner workings is ongoing, I've developed a bit more of a softer, less judgmental side when it comes to how I watch television. I still want it to be the best it can be, and I still hold a special place in my heart for narrative storytelling critiques, but a little bit wonky CGI or cinematography? I know the time crunches and overwork that's happening. Some acting missteps here and there? We've all done it. I don't do my job perfectly 100% of the time. And what I'm long-windedly trying to say is that I'm sitting back and relaxing more with my watches, and I was really hard on season 2 and even on the title of Frenemies coming up here for this season. But I am embracing it, and I really did miss this show. And what I wish I had done with Legends toward the end is be more generous toward my ratings and thoughts. Unless I really don't like something. Then you'll know. Okay, now that I've said my piece, on to the actual feedback. Right off the bat, I'm very happy they went back to giving the episodes actual titles, even if they are straight to the point like The Murder. Though it may mean that we don't get Perry White's movie music-inspired alternate titles anymore. And I will hand it to the show. The music supervisor and whoever else is in charge of music is doing a great job. I have loved the soundtrack since season 1, and opening with Neil Diamond's America to a montage of the town and showing where everyone is at presently was a great way to open the season. I can certainly already feel the inspiration of Knives Out, and I'm liking the tone already a lot more than season 2. But at the same time, anytime someone just said murder, all I could think about was The Office when they were playing the murder mystery game and Michael Scott going, "There's been a murder." If we get a Clue-inspired episode at some point this season, I feel like that would be a lot of fun. And we are very much presented with one of our concerns we've had for the show, and that is something that we share with a lot of CW shows, and that's just how many characters there are in the cast right now, and how many B and C stories we may have to juggle that won't ultimately filter into the main A storyline. With the murder mystery, that feels as though all the storylines will more organically overlap and intertwine, so here's hoping. I liked getting a glimpse of plans for a possibly more current, comics-accurate, and updated costume look for Beth. I know that was also a concern. It looks as though Rick has been tinkering and attempting to fix the hourglass, as well as revive Grundy. And I think Meg DeLacy could just kill us with all of her facial acting alone, because it was very great to see Cindy attempting to help that old lady with her groceries and her just trying to keep all of her emotions in. But interestingly enough, and I think this shows the character problem too, I didn't get too much of a sense of what was going on with Beth, Rick, or Yolanda. We only got small glimpses here and there. I feel like we got more of the Crocks than we did with them. But with that, I do like the Crocks. They bring a really fun dynamic already, what with Crusher breaking in and making protein shakes at 5:30 in the morning, and Paula having almost zero sense of social awareness with her talk with Barbara. And I couldn't help it. I laughed each time Artemis showed up, yelled, "Go team," or JSA, kicked some butt, and then just disappeared off into the night. And I wasn't expecting Gambler to have a daughter. I wasn't expecting that to be the reason that he's back or involved, and it is a good way to provide more mystery while also giving us some emotional overtones to his death, and why, we should care in the first place that he died. In the comics, his granddaughter, Becky, goes by the name of Hazard, and we actually saw a version of her on The Flash in Season 4 as one of the bus metas. She can manipulate probability and luck. And Flash, this is a fun fact for you, she does have ties to Calgary in one run in the comics. That's where she and the Wizard set up base at one point. So there you go.
Oh.
And then that brings me to Starman. I love Joel McHale, and I'm happy to see him on my screen again. I loved him in Community, and it will be interesting to see Starman's relationship to everyone here, especially to Pat and Courtney. If we are to believe this is Starman, and a change for the better Starman at that, right now he's doing a good job, wanting to reconnect with Pat in a way that isn't deprecating, coming clean to Courtney about only coming back for the staff, but realizing it has chosen her, and for good reason. And, to that story about him waking up and having to crawl out of his own grave. If we are to believe him, of course. Mm-hmm. If this wasn't a superhero universe, if you did happen to wake up in your coffin underground, you would be dead. There's no way of being able to crawl out of all that dirt, even if you somehow got the coffin open. Anyway, I'm still on the side of Starman isn't all he seems, and he's going to end up the villain. I'm going to start that train early here and now, because I think it would be wildly fun to have Starman, who has a connection to everyone via the JSA and the Whitmore Dugan family, and has been revered as a hero by everyone, to end up being the bad guy, because he just can't seem to get past his black and white morals of the ISA members being villains and nothing more than that. I mean, imagine him silently murdering ISA members in the background while trying to frame other members of the ISA or ISA's kids. That's the right amount of dastardly that we need here. Anyway, we'll see how it plays out, but there's no way it was Cindy. Even with her being in the anti-hero, morally gray realm, there's no way it was her when they literally made the last shot of her standing over the gambler's body, holding a literal smoking gun. That's too easy, but a good source for early dramatics and mistrust seeping its way into the group. Overall, I would rate this episode a 7.5 matching family vacation shirts out of 10. It was a soft opener, not a whole lot of action or plot, honestly, but it does set up everyone's stories and struggles and gives us something to look forward to for the next week. But where was Cameron? Huh? Alright, that's all my thoughts for now. Until next time, your friend who's in an optimistic mood, Dreamweaver.
Well,
Nice.
Dreamweaver, your optimism was right in line with ours. You pretty much word for word said and felt everything that we basically went through for the last hour and a half, so that's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you just finished complaining about there possibly being too many characters, and now you're asking for Cameron? Come on. But I did sense a little bit of guilt there. She opened her whole feedback with trying to make up for the negativity of the last season and Legends feedback she gave us. So just kind of clearing the air, I guess, for herself. Back.
Well, we all grow and change and get a bigger perspective, and it changes how, when you watch something the first time and then you have life happen to you and you watch it again, you're going to have a different reaction to it a lot of the time. So
I mean, did you listen to the news in the beginning there? I read you our first 1-star rating. So obviously we were very negative last season about me more so than anything about this season 2 as well. So you weren't the only one. Don't worry. She also was talking about the music, and I wanted to touch on that a little bit more because I agree with her. Every season so far of the show, they have really nailed the soundtrack. They just, whether they're buying the rights to use certain songs or they're creating their own music, whatever, it's just been fun. Like, they've really, really nailed the soundtrack for the show, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then she said there's got to be a Clue episode this season. Man, I would love that.
Oh,
like a full-on
me
Clue.
too.
If you guys have not seen
too.
the movie Clue with
Go watch
Tim Curry as the butler, it is one of the funnest.
The cast is amazing.
But it's all, I mean, the movie's good, but it's all up to those last 10 minutes when Tim Curry has to run, when he figures it all out and has to run around the house and explain exactly how everything happened. It's awesome. It's so funny. And then there's also 3 different endings. So if you can find it and watch all 3 different endings, he does it 3 different times.
It's so good. Like I own the movie. Like I have vivid memories of like watching it as a kid at my aunt's house on a rainy day. She lived at the beach, and then but I own it. And like every time I'm in iTunes and I'm like scrolling through movies, it's like, okay, I'll watch something else. But like I watch it fairly regular, a couple times a year, because it's just so hilarious.
Much fun. So go check out Clue if you guys can. It's old, like it's from the 80s. It's been around for a while, but awesome stuff, Dreamweaver. Next up is Perry White.
Hey, Cosmic Crew. Perry White here with feedback for Stargirl Season 3 premiere episode, Chapter 1, The Murder. And I hope that this feedback finds you guys in time. I know I missed my deadline. It's a terrible way to start off Season 3. But I would just say real quickly, I really like Season 3's initial episode. It established exactly what this season is going to be all about. It's about trust and betrayal and murder, and basically who can you trust and who can you not trust. And I dig those sorts of seasons. One thing I will say, well, 2 things I want to say about this season and this show that sort of jumped out at me right away. And the first thing is, man, just Blue Valley. You think about like all of the towns or the cities where our superheroes live, and good God Almighty, they are towns and cities that you would never ever want to live in. I mean, there's always death and destruction and mayhem around every corner, but freaking Blue Valley is the kind of place that looks and feels like a place you'd actually want to live. So kudos to that, and that's just something that just jumped out at me right away. The other thing that I love as a reporter in a small town, seeing Jakeem riding around delivering newspapers, and then you look on the counter in the kitchen and there are like about 4 or 5 actual newspapers, and it's just nice to see that in some universe print journalism is surviving and thriving. So that's really cool to see. All in all, I really liked the episode. I'll be interested to see how Sylvester and Courtney deal with trying to split the staff between the day shift and the night shift. I think that's going to be interesting. And I'm really sort of also interested to see how the Crocks fit in as neighbors in this community. I just love the freaking energy from like Artemis and Sportsmaster and Tigers. I just think they're sort of just like full tilt. They go at the world at one speed. And it's just like real nice to see that and everyone's reaction to it. Anyway, I've really enjoyed the season 3 premiere episode. It sort of sets everyone in the place for where you think and feel like their arcs are going to go. And I can't wait to watch this wild ride with the rest of you guys on the Cosmic Crew. This has been Perry White. I hope this feedback finds you in time. If not, it'll be sort of feedback for the next one. Anyway, I'm out.
You made it, Perry.
Yeah, no worries. You will not be reprimanded. No strikes against you tonight because you got it in.
Yeah.
Actually, you got it an hour before we started, so no worries there.
Yeah.
And I have to thank you because in writing the notes, I knew we had a name for our Stargirl fans, and I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember what the fan base was, and it's Cosmic Crew. That's what we ended up with.
Yeah, I was putting that in the notes for the podcast, the Libsyn post, and it's like bringing out the Cosmic Crew again.
Yeah.
So,
well, it sounds like Perry White is right there with us as well, and Dreamweaver and his thoughts and where we are. So it looks like we're all on the same page to kick this off, and that's good. A good start to season 3. We'll have to get Harley's feelings on episode 1 once she's watched it and see what she thought. And I think she's going to catch up with us for episode 2. She should be ready to go for that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sounds like it. All right. Well, feedbackers, if you want to be part of the show, part of the discussion, and send us your thoughts about Stargirl, this is what you have to do.
If you would like to be a part of the show, you can send in your feedback to Tomorrow's Legends Podcast at gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter at Tomorrow's Legends. We'd love you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Tomorrow's Legends and become part of the community.
Yeah. Well, like I said at the top of the show, it's good to be back in Blue Valley in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I'm really glad that things are paced out more this season with shows. Like last fall was just hard for us because we had 2 weeks where we had 3 shows going, and that's just hard. So we're back to like normalcy where we've got a fall show and we have a late winter spring show.
Yes.
And so I like it a lot.
It is nice, and it makes it easier on all of us and easier on me too, because once the Mandalore gets going and there's Star Wars mixed into the group, then it's too much. But Andor starting soon, and so I'll be doing.
I am looking forward to that. Man, that's gonna be good.
So am I. Like they're really saying this is going to be the most groundbreaking and leveling Star Wars show. Like it's just going to be so gritty and a Star Wars like you've never seen before. I'm really looking forward to it. So if you guys are checking that out, then definitely listen to the Mandalore for that. And there's rumors out there that Bad Batch season 2 is coming around the same time, so there'll be 2 Star Wars shows, and I don't know how I'm going to do that, but we'll figure it all out.
Yeah,
that'll be a lot of fun. So good stuff coming, and I think for DC stuff, this is really it. It is just Stargirl until November, and then we'll probably take a big Christmas break before Superman and Lois starts again, right?
Yeah, we will as far as TV goes. And our friends over at Dive Into DC, they've done part 1 of the Sandman, the Netflix series, they're getting ready to do the review of part 2.
Oh, right.
As far as movies, we've got Black Adam coming up, which I'm looking forward to.
Yes, The Rock.
So we'll see how they've been covering the news of the DC side there, but I'm glad we've got some TV shows to talk about. So
exactly. That's good with John and Justina. They cover a lot of the news. Anything that's happening in DC, they're tracking down, and
Yeah.
getting out to you on the Cybercast Network there with their Dive into DC show. So it's great to have them here with us. And yeah, so check them out and check us out next week. Everybody, it's a long weekend, so everybody have a good Labor Day long weekend.
Yep.
We'll all be back in your ears in a week. This is The Flash signing off.
This is X-Force 11. So say we all.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, HBO, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network. Be sure to check out our partner shows, The Mandalore and Dive into DC, covering your favorite Star Wars and DC Comics properties. Thanks for listening.